Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
Well, hello, this is Dave Casey, and I'm one of the partners here at Mastery Partners and doing something we haven't done before. And I'm joined by two of our other partners, Amy Morin and David Brown. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So this will be a fun little exercise, I think. So I'll have you guys yourselves in just a minute, but really the reason behind this, we get a lot of questions from our clients when we're doing what we call the transition readiness analysis. We actually run the clients through a questionnaire and gather kind of deep information about their company. But even before that, we have a set of discovery questions when we engage with a client just to see if it's going to be a good fit between Mastery Partners and their company. And one of the questions we ask is, are you using any type of business operating system? And many times they get kind of a blank stare and they say, well, we got QuickBooks. Does that count? Or they'll go, well, we use an ERP system or something along those lines, but that's not what we're really talking about. So we're talking about the concept of a business operating system. It's a structured way to essentially run your business. So Amy, I'll start with you, and just, I know you've got a little bit of background owning multiple different businesses over the years, and did you always use a business operating system?
I'm the perfect example of getting run over by your businesses when you don't use an operating system, and therefore you just couldn't wait to get rid of them.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh.
Yeah. But I became an EOS implementer because I started doing some work with a construction company after selling my construction company and selling our fly fishing resort. I was working doing some consulting with a company that was running on EOS. So I got to see the difference between what it looked like to run a business without an operating system and a business with an operating system. And it was like night and day.
Wow.
And so I wrapped up my consulting gig with them and became an EOS implementer.
Great. So I know most of the people viewing this will probably know what EOS is, but what does that stand for? What does that mean?
Yeah, so EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's based on the book Traction that Gino Wickman wrote, and Gino developed EOS, and it is a structured way of running your company. And then I'm sure I'll save the rest for when we get into the discussion.
Sounds great. So David, I know you're coming at this from a little bit different angle, but you might share your experience in running a company and with and without a structured operating system. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the son of an entrepreneur, and that entrepreneur grew a pretty good size, successful business with completely ready, fire, aim. And then I ran his business for him, which means I was downstream from the chaos he creted.
Oh, wow.
In fact, I
You're a
heard
good
someone
son.
once describe that, I'm a firefighter and I love putting out fires, but I work for an arsonist. And that's how it kind of felt when you're downstream from a ready, fire, aim. So we ran a business for a long time without an operating system. We were big fans of Patrick Lencioni and implemented a lot of his philosophies, but I wouldn't call it a system until we found ourselves, growing a business top line and struggling to match that with bottom line. And couldn't figure out exactly what was happening. That's when we came across The Great Game of Business, originally a book written by Jack Stack, and kind of turned into, and it's a way to align incentives and motivations of employees and owners. And so we adopted that in 2020, and it just did phenomenal things for our business. We were acquired, and then the acquiring private equity backed firm ended up implementing GGOB across the much larger organization. And I currently have two clients that I work with that both run on EOS, and their desire is to implement GGOB as a complement to
Wow.
EOS. So I think today is not a EOS versus GGOB monster truck rally. It's much more of a they do different things. They
Yeah.
accomplish different goals, but they can be complementary in the right business.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. So that'll be a good take on it then, looking at it from that standpoint. So great. So we'll start with the first area that I wanted to talk about, and that is organizational alignment. And both of you kind of, I think, expressed maybe a little frustration of if you're running a business without kind of an underlying structured business operating system, that this organizational alignment is a big challenge. So, David, I'll start with you. Did you see that before you implemented Great Game of Business?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think again, through some of Lencioni's books and philosophies, we had kind of strategic planning in place. But
Hmm.
what EOS does very, very well is cascade strategy down from 10-year to 3-year to 1 year to quarterly to what are we doing this week, and
Hmm.
aligning those things that is phenomenal. And so I think EOS, from my perspective, and Amy's the expert, but it does a really good job of helping owners and leadership teams create vision, planning, accountability, and execution discipline. I think it's really good at those things.
Hmm.
What GGOB does is it really teaches an entire organization how a business makes money.
Oh,
And then it aligns ownership and everybody in the organization on the information needed. Like, how is the business doing? There's a tremendous amount of financial transparency in a business run on GGOB. And then there is storytelling around why is a business making money or not making money, so that it's educating people every week on how the business is doing. And then generally it's tied to something called gain share, which a lot of times is tied to EBITDA or profit sharing. And so if the owners are interested in building enterprise value,
mhm.
what GGOB does is align employees' rewards with owners' rewards so that we're
Wow.
all rowing in the same direction. So I feel like EOS organizationally does a really good job of creating structure in lots of areas. The economic alignment, I think, is where GGOB leans in as a complement to EOS.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, Amy, as far as organizational alignment, what are the tenets of EOS around that?
Yeah. So we start out with organizational alignment is really around aligning around the vision of the organization first, right? It's really the vision for where you're going is where we make the decision, right? So without vision, you have no decision, no test of how we're going to make decisions or where we're going to go, right?
Hmm.
So we end up with organizational alignment around that. We also end up with organizational alignment using the accountability chart. So there are lots of tools in EOS. I come from the construction background. And so a carpenter goes to work with a toolbox full of tools. And EOS is that for a business, right? It's about harnessing human energy around the organization to all row in the same direction. And I completely agree with David. It's not one or at all, because they really do two different things. It is one and if you feel like you need that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd love to talk to David a little bit about we also in EOS encourage open, honest, transparent organizations, right? And that transparency should have a financial element to it. So let's just say, for example, your 1 year goal, right? When you share that for organizational alignment at your state of the company meeting, that should include a revenue and a profit number. However, I often find small business owners are very reluctant to share that. They're reluctant to share financial information. So I'd love to know from David, what's the workaround for that?
Hmm.
Well, I think generally small business owners can be reluctant to share financial information, and the question becomes, is it dangerous? right?
Yeah.
Is it going to undermine, my leadership, my authority, my ability, my freedom to do with economics what I desire? So I do think, one of our struggles that we had when we first read the book, we loved the concept, but the idea of financial transparency, of literally open book management, kind of scared us. And
Yeah.
then we went to a Great Game of Business conference. We started talking with other business owners and found out, I mean, it's not everybody knows what everybody makes. That's not what they mean by financial
Mhm.
transparency, but it is radical. And so largely, you create a scorecard, a scorecard, a
Yeah.
scoreboard, and that is a rolled up P&L, so to speak. So there might be 10 to 15 revenue lines, 10 to 15 expense lines. You've got the budget column showing what the month is supposed to look like. And then every week you're going to meet everybody in the company and you're going to forecast for the month based on the first week. You're going to
Hmm.
come back a week later. You have
Hmm.
1 week of actual, you have 3 week of potential, and you're
Hmm.
going to forecast the month in week two, week three, and week four, so that everybody in the company is seeing revenue, expenses, EBITDA. They
Yeah.
know exactly how the business is doing. And then after you close the books 2 weeks into the following month, you're
Yeah.
going to take 10 minutes, you're going to come back and you're going to reconcile actual against final forecast and you're going to try to where were their differences, right? If somebody missed something by $300, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if a forecast was missed by 30%,
Yeah.
the answer is why. It's not a blame. It's nobody's the enemy. It's what is the story behind the forecast, either good or bad, the actual in forecast being different. And as they tell those stories,
Yeah.
people understand how a business makes money.
Yeah.
And then they
So,
begin to understand the business beyond just their job. And that's what it does, is it aligns everybody around the business making money.
Well,
so
and
is
I would say, sorry, Dave, I would say, right, it aligns people around the value of the seat that they sit in. And that's what we do in EOS too, right? In our accountability chart, you see what you're accountable for. And that accountability is the value of what you deliver in the seat that you sit in and the impact that it has in the organization. And what I hear you saying, David, is that you add a financial element to it, right, in your scorecard. So, which is
Exactly,
an
because
interesting part. Yeah.
the two clients that I have on EOS, I mean, you're right, they have a 10-year, a 3-year, a 1 year. They share those goals, and it does have revenue and it does have EBITDA, but they don't run transparent books
Mhm.
Mhm.
throughout the month or throughout the quarter or throughout the year. So maybe a quarterly town hall, they give an update,
Yeah.
but it's not a level of a seeing exactly not only did we make or not make money, but where was that
Yeah.
impact that created that result and why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
that's
it's that unearthing of why that is so revelationary in the business.
see, I
Yeah.
think that's the trepidation that I've seen. I certainly had it when I was running my business of if you're too transparent, let's say things are going great. We're ahead of all of our numbers. You're transparent with that and you're celebrating. Hey, we're killing it, right? Well, as soon as you say we're killing it, it's just like in the back of your mind, everybody's going to be in my office now asking for a raise because we're killing it, right? Or on the other side, let's say that we're struggling, we haven't made our number for this month or this quarter, for whatever reason, could be internal, could be external, but for whatever reason, now there's people's doubt, geez, do I want to work here? What if this company's struggling? What if it goes out of business? Or what if it gets bought out? Or what if something bad happens? So there's always that trepidation that people have that they'll invent
But I
something.
think, Dave,
Yeah,
the reason they're in your office asking for a raise is
yeah,
they don't have an outlet to do well when the company does well.
yeah,
The
yeah.
idea of GGOB is that they've got a profit share so that
Hmm.
they will automatically get a distribution as a result of the company doing well. So the business is going to give them a raise. They don't have to come finagle me to
Yeah,
give them a raise. And that ideally is the magic. Now it works both ways because if the business is not doing well, they know that they're not going to get that. Hopefully they feel informed and empowered to try to do something about it. But obviously it can work against you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we definitely we shifted from annual bonuses to quarterly bonuses for that reason that people could see sometimes you get into a season where first quarter is going to be strong and third quarter is going to be weak. So, and everybody's on pins and needles to get to the end of the year to see if we're going to get a bonus. Well, they can secure that bonus first quarter. Then we'll
That's right.
attack second quarter. Then we'll attack third quarter. So yeah, I can see. So that we had a level of transparency, but nothing close to what Great Game does. But and that kind of brings us into item number two, really, which is accountability and metrics, and how do you hold people accountable? What metrics do you look at, and do people actually buy in and accept that? And I know with EOS, we run EOS at Mastery Partners, well, Mastery Group, all three companies. There's varying levels of buy-in, I think, in terms of acceptance stuff. But what is what has been your experience, Amy, with accountability and metrics with EOS?
Yeah. So accountability is actually an outcome of great leadership and great management, right? And you as a leader and a manager actually really need to be both. You need to have, there's a time for leading, which is all about the vision, right?
Yep.
And managing is all about communicating how are we going to achieve that vision. And that's really where the accountability comes in. People are not going to be led to some place where they actually don't know where they're going, right? Nobody's going to be accountable for anything if we don't know what the clarity is around that.
Mm-hmm.
So in EOS, it does start with that accountability chart that I mentioned earlier, right? So then you know exactly what you're accountable for, but it really is the value. There's an exchange of resources in an organization, right? I'm going to pay you in exchange for you bringing value to the company, and I'm going to clearly define what that value is in the accountability chart. So we use it as a workforce planning tool too, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it starts there. Then it gets tracked weekly with your scorecard metrics, right? So everybody in the company has at least one scorecard metric that they're accountable to, and we track that every single week at the L10. In addition to that, anybody in the company who has rocks, also there's some metrics that tied to that.
And rocks are a 90-day goal, right?
They are 90-day initiatives, yes. 90-day initiatives that are getting you to your 1 year. So in EOS, we basically eat the elephant 1 week at a time, 1 quarter at a time, 1 year at a time when you're looking at your long range, goal, your 5 to 30-year goal, what Jim Collins refers to as a BHAG.
Right, right. So, and David, you described a little bit on accountability and metrics within Great Game, but do you see that it varies from company to company of how transparent they are or how they're setting up metrics or, the way things ultimately get accounted for?
Yeah, I mean, certainly companies have the liberty to choose a different critical number. So most businesses choose EBITDA, but they don't have to. So you could have a different critical number that would drive a different level of transparency and accountability. What EOS does really, really well is what Amy explained, that from vision on down, it really drives long-term to short-term vision to what's most important this quarter, updates on those rocks every week to the quarter, and then those metrics. So GGOB really doesn't have a component that does that. That's why I think they're so complementary.
Yeah.
But there is a tremendous amount of financial accountability. So, if you're a person in charge of one of those revenue lines and you're reporting actual to forecast in front of the entire company every week, there is a tremendous amount of accountability that you should forecast accurately. And if you miss your mark, you're going to be telling the entire company why you missed your mark.
And that's
and
why
so
you're sick
inherent
that
is
morning.
that
You can't commit.
Yeah, well, and then you're back the next week. So there really is no being sick. It's a buy-in, that we're all accountable to one another. If we want good things to happen for the business and for us individually, we have to succeed. I'm accountable and I contribute to that success individually into the corporate good. And so they have to buy in on that. Now we had our scoreboard that had, financial metrics. We also had, I'd say, 8 to 10 metrics that were just key to the business. And so we happen to run a consulting business. And so things like utilization and bill rate, deals created from a sales perspective, pipeline value were things we reported on every week so that we created visibility to the business. So there was some accountability, but it's not done in like the organized fashion that EOS is.
So it's more a guide, maybe a set of guidelines, and each company kind of implements it a little bit differently from that standpoint.
It's a measure against a target, but it doesn't necessarily inherently tie to 10-year, 3-year, 1 year, or quarter. and metrics. And that's where I think EOS does such a
Yeah.
phenomenal job.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a good perspective having done both, I guess. And
And I love both. I mean, if I
yeah,
were with a company running on GGOB, they probably have problems that EOS would solve,
yeah,
even if they're running GGOB well, or vice versa.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely so.
So do you feel like, David, that GGOB is classified as an operating system, or is it's all, like it's a way of getting deeper on the financial side, right? Because
That's a good question. I don't think I would classify it
Mm.
as
right,
an operating system. I think I would classify it as a way of aligning employee and ownership interest
yeah,
Mm.
to a common goal.
yeah,
And there's a tremendous amount of education that goes along with doing that. But I wouldn't call it. I think where GGOB fit into our company was an alignment around incentives and rewards,
yeah.
and then ultimately an accountability to how we're doing on that. But we used a lot of the Lencioni components around our strategic planning, around our, critical issues for the quarter and that sort of
Sure.
thing.
So it sounds like if you're going to run an ESOP, GGOB would be definitely complementary to EOS, right? And which, if you're going to create ownership in the rest of the organization or in the organization where you have this employee stock ownership, and you've taught people exactly the financial inner workings of the company and how to meet financial targets, I mean, that's invaluable.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of ESOPs. I mean, within the GGOB community, there are a lot of ESOPs because
Yeah.
there is a natural,
Yeah.
but even owners that don't necessarily want to share their equity and struggle with, well, I don't want to give away equity, but I want people to be motivated to help us grow enterprise value. GGOB can be a
Yeah.
way to get everybody rowing in that direction and get rewarded in incremental sense for growing enterprise value so that when the owner actually sells the business, obviously there's an exponential exit there that they would benefit from that employees without equity would not.
So that kind of goes into how do you introduce an operating system to a company that's not running on anything to start with? And I struggle with this. I belong to a nonprofit that uses EOS. And so we started with the board. We started educating the board on what EOS was, how it worked, the whole structure, the whole thing. Then we kind of moved it out to the committee chairs. We have probably 10 or 12 committees within the nonprofit. So the committee chairs then were kind of included in. And then it was the third layer, which I don't think we've actually reached yet, is getting every member of the organization familiar with what we're doing with EOS and why it's important for them. Now, as a nonprofit, you're not really, I mean, you're just asking people to volunteer to do things. You're not really paying anybody. You're not enforcing anything really, but you're encouraging. And it's a servant leadership nonprofit. So people that join are servant leaders by nature, I think, or they don't last very long. And but it has been a struggle kind of moving from the board understanding this is how level 10 is going to run from the way our old board meetings ran. And then getting the committee chairs to say, this is the way your committee should run, as opposed to the regular committee meetings that you've been doing for years. So that's taken quite a bit of time. And I think with Great Game, David, how did you guys introduce it to the company? Did it start at the senior management and work its way down, or?
Yeah, good question. So there were, I guess, five owners within the business, and one of the owners happened to read the book. And after reading the book, he came to our leadership team and said, I think you guys should read the book. We all read the book and we were equal parts intrigued and skeptical. And it just happened to be as we were kind of having the conversation, we found out that the Great Game Conference was happening in Dallas within like 60 days.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, there's no excuse not to go. So three of the five of us went. We attended different sessions, and fascinating because by the end of the first day, everybody came together, debriefed what they'd heard. And we made the decision, we're going to do this. We're just not sure how, we're not sure when. But it was pretty convincing within an 8-hour day that we really wanted to. We were excited, not just for the benefit to the owners, but if
Mhm.
we can teach everybody in our business, I think we probably had 60 employees at the time, consultants, technology consultants. They're good at their technology. They're good at a billable hour. They're good at problem solving, but they don't necessarily understand how a consulting business makes money. Could we supercharge people individually and their career if we help them understand how business works and how companies make money and what happens when you don't make money.
Yeah.
And that got us excited as well from a people development perspective. So within the great game system, I guess the change management philosophy is there's kind of ownership buy-in, and then you create what's called a design team. And so you get participation from various all levels of the organization, but maybe somebody, at the very lowest level, like a new employee, somebody in the mid to middle tier, somebody on the executive team, somebody in finance, and you bring that team together and they basically run the game for a period of about 6 to 8 weeks in a microcosm. And you get those people to help kind of figure it out. But then you also create, kind of evangelist. Once they kind of get inside, they meet the wizard, then they get a little bit excited about it. So that when you roll it out to the company at large, you can say, hey, if you have questions, by the way, somebody from your team participated in the design team. Ask them, see what their perspective was. And generally you want to choose your design team from people that are influencers, whether they're negative Nancy's or positive Pauls, bring them all in, because if those people get convinced,
Yeah.
then they'll be the best sellers of the system.
Amy, how have you seen EOS, be engaged by the employees, as opposed to just the senior management?
Yeah. It starts with the senior management. So when we start an EOS implementation, we work with the executive leadership team first, right? And then that team basically comes to a level of mastery, what I call, and then during the rollout phase of EOS, as we're rolling out the EOS tools and the operating structure and the strategy and the execution plan to the rest of the organization, that's really being done by the leadership team. So various people on the leadership team. So think about it this way, right? Every single business has at least some sort of visionary and integrator. Sometimes that's one seat and sometimes that's two. And so what I really mean by that is somebody who's leading the organization, right? Super 30,000 foot level. Hey, I see the organization going here or doing this. And then you've got the integrator or the person who's running the day-to-day operation. And sometimes that's like a COO or something like that. Then you've always have some sort of sales function, or some sort of a marketing function, some sort of an operations function, and some sort of a finance function, right? And those functions are the heads of those functions would be the people that I would meet with, right, collectively for a day. And so it's the opportunity to train them. You basically are training the trainers. So you train that leadership team level, and then they end up rolling out EOS to the rest of the organization with support from an implementer such as me.
And is it, I imagine, and I've seen it certainly with us and with, I've got several clients that are using EOS.
Mm-hmm.
There's varying levels of engagement by the employees.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are like, man, I just want to do my job. This looks like extra work or, something.
Yeah.
They just aren't getting the big picture, maybe.
Yeah.
And then even within management teams, I've seen where, some people are really on board. Other people are like, oh, I forgot to do that. And, I didn't do this week or whatever. So there is some, I'd say, employee disengagement maybe, or a lack of engagement. And so I guess it's really falls on the leadership to cast that vision and just say, here's the reason we're doing this. This is why we think it's positive for everyone, not just for us, and for everyone's future, everyone's career, everyone's, day to day. So.
So that's where leading and managing gets really strong, right? You've got to have a strong leadership and a strong management team in personality and behavior in order to do that, right? Going back to Lencioni's work.
Yeah.
You've got to have strong leaders and strong managers, or nothing happens in an organization. You have no vision, you have no strategy, you have no execution.
Yep.
So one of the ways the people component is so strong in EOS is because it's really the right people sitting in the right seats that help you get where you want to go, where you want to take your company. Jim Collins refers to it as everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction. I used to own a fly fishing resort.
Yeah.
And so if you're floating down the river and, you want to be floating, you want everybody to be floating in the same direction, right? You don't want to be like a salmon spawning up the river when everybody's going down, right, in the boat. And so...
casting will become an issue.
Exactly. So Is it easy to get everyone aligned, David? No. I mean, there are people who do not want to be held accountable, right? Let's just be honest. If you say the word accountability, people are like, two camps, right? Yes, I'm excited that we're finally holding people accountable, so I'm not the only person actually doing my job in this company while everybody else is, getting away with stuff, so to speak. Or you have the other camp where people think there's no way I want to be held accountable. I don't want people to know what I'm doing, right? And so who do you really want in your organization? I want to.
And I would say neither system's going to work if owners aren't willing to be accountable as well. Right. Because sometimes totally owners want everybody to be accountable except them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And both EOS and Great Game are going to require a level of accountability at an ownership level. You got to lean into that because speed of the boss, speed of the crew. If you expect everybody else to run these systems well and you operate outside of them, they won't.
Correct. So, yeah. Completely agree.
So the last area I wanted to touch on was, and we've talked about these kind of, I won't say in generalities, but kind of a big picture look at them. The actual process and documentation on how do you roll this out and what is a daily, weekly, monthly cadence look like? So Amy, I'll start with you with what's the process of EOS and what's kind of documentation backs that up?
Yeah. So are you asking process of rolling out EOS to the rest of the organization?
No, once it's up and going. Like? So the concept of a level 10 meeting and what that means and what rocks are and issues and all that kind of stuff, to-dos.
Right. So I'm going to start from the very high level and I'm going to work my way down if that's okay.
Okay.
So once the vision is cast, you've answered the questions of what are our core values, what's our core focus, what's our long range target and so on, right? Who are our clients? What's our marketing strategy? Once that whole thing is cast, the next question there is your 3-year picture, right? So once a year, you align as a leadership team and make sure that you're still all seeing the same thing, including what do we need to update on this 3-year picture? From that 3-year picture, we now set our 1-year plan, right? So we know what our company is going to look like when we have that increase in revenue, when we've tripled revenue in the next 3 years, we've tripled EBITDA, or we are tracking, profits are increasing. We've had this picture of how many people we have and how many offices and so on, right? Then we create our 1-year plan based on that. Then we create 90-day initiatives. In the exit planning world, we execute every single 90 days. In EOS, we call those rocks. But they're the big initiatives that help us get to the 1-year plan. Mm-hmm. Weekly, we check in on how are we tracking against those rocks? How are we tracking against our scorecard, our metrics that are driving to where we want to go? In our scorecard, the thing I think that might separate EOS from any other system out there is that we use a lot of activity-based indicators in our scorecard. So there are some lagging. Everybody always wants to know how much cash they have in their account. But it primarily leading indicators, which allows companies to pivot quickly when they're not making them. So for instance, if we've got a revenue of, let's just call it $3 million every single month, and I know that we need X number of sales calls in order to actually drive that from historical data, if we're not making those sales calls, you can bet your bottom dollar we're not going to meet that $3 million revenue goal. And so we want to be tracking those sales calls or proposals written or whatever it happens to be, the activities, to make sure that we're going to meet that revenue goal. So all that gets looked at every single week in that L10 meeting. And so L10 meetings, it stands for level 10. So on a scale of 1 to 10, are we having a meeting that's awesome? Is it informative? Is it efficient? Is it giving us the information we need? And more importantly, is it helping us identify the issues that are holding us back this week? What do we need to solve this week so we can keep executing, right? It's the potholes in the road, so to speak. We are doing that at the leadership team level, but also at department levels, covering the same information, just not for the same length of time. But more importantly, we want to be knocking down the obstacles every single week all throughout the organization. because who knows what's going on better in the organization but the front line, right?
Yep. And
So
if something pops up, the front line knows it first. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that one weekly tool, that L10 meeting, tracks accountability. It gives, it really enhances communication across the organization. We're troubleshooting by knocking down the issues every single week. We're making sure that we're actually going to meet our 1 year because we're looking at rocks. So it really, in a short period of time, in a short 90 minutes, again, just at that leadership team level, you are getting a lot of information.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So David, when you rolled out Great Game, you described a little bit how the tiers of how you did it and everything, but what does it look like on a weekly or daily or weekly basis in terms of what the process is and how is it documented?
Sure. So, again, some of the design elements are you're choosing a critical number. Let's say it's EBITDA. You're extrapolating from the budget a scoreboard that has kind of your revenue and your expenses and your EBITDA. You're designing a gain share, which is the percentage of profit sharing that everybody's going to participate in. Once all the design elements are in play, the core is a weekly huddle. And ours was almost exactly 27 minutes. I mean, when you run it for multiple years every week, you get really good at it, right? And part of that huddle is the opportunity to share a success story, to highlight an employee, to talk about a corporate award, a charitable contribution, whatever that might be. But the core of it is walking through that scoreboard. Every revenue number is owned by somebody. They're going to communicate the forecast of that number for the month. And it's going to flow to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. If the forecast from last week changed significantly, then the facilitator's job is to say why. Why is the forecast double what it was? Well, good things have happened. Whatever that story is where people really learn what's happening in the business and how a business makes money. And so you'll walk through all the revenue, all the expenses. You'll update what EBITDA is projected to be, where that would put us on the gain share. Hey, we're at a level 6. Budget would say we should be at a level 4. Everybody high five, but we've got to hold it. And oh, by the way, we might be $27,000 of EBITDA away from level 7. So what can we do to push to that? And you'll do that every week. And then on a quarterly basis, that's when bonuses are paid. They're typically a little bit back end loaded for the year. So you pay 10% after first quarter, 20% after second, 30% after third, 40% after fourth, just to make sure you don't have a really strong first quarter and then pay too much in bonus. And then they have this concept called mini games. And so if you notice behaviors that need to change in the business, for example, if one aspect of forecasting is consistently wrong because we don't have the ability to say estimate materials in a construction business or whatever, you might create a mini game. You design it. It's a 3 to 5 week with a particular team with a particular goal for improving a behavior. You create an incentive. You run that mini game. You try to improve that behavior, and then you move on. And so we would typically have 1 or 2 mini games, going every quarter, trying to improve a certain behavior in the business. But the huddle and the mini games are the primary mechanisms to play the game.
And the huddles are they departmental? Is there a big huddle for everybody?
Well, I say this, generally they're company wide. And so when we were running it with 60, 65 people, it was, unless you were with a client, it was 65 people on that huddle for 27 minutes.
Wow.
Now, when we were acquired, and the company that acquired us was over 500 employees with multiple business units. So what they did is they played the game in separate business units that rolled up to a corporate game. So 3 weeks a month, they ran a business unit huddle that might have 150 people in it.
Mm-hmm.
But once a month, it was all 500 people in the corporate huddle for 27 minutes, rolling through at a corporate level, revenues, expenses, and EBITDA.
So not everyone would participate in a huddle meeting then. There would be.
Oh, no, certainly not.
There's just
generally people who own the number
Yeah.
and the facilitator, and then you might have 1 or 2 other people. The CEO may want to say something, and then typically if it's a large group, 500 folks, you might be running a Q&A in a chat. If it's a smaller group of 50 people, then somebody could raise their hand on Teams, and you could call on them. They could ask a question. So you have to manage the audience.
Yeah. So there's a real structure there in terms of you don't have the Gabby person dominating the huddle. If
No,
you're down to the
facilitators
precise
need to
minute
be
of how long it lasts, you guys have it
They
down,
need to be
so.
well chosen. They need to be enthusiastic, but a little bit of OCD.
To the point. Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. So what do you think would be, we've talked about exactly how these systems work and certainly the spectacular results that can come about as a result of that. And I think your company, David, is a great example of that. But when we talk to business owners that are unfamiliar with the concept, how do we convince them that this is worth a look? And
Yeah,
Amy, I guess you do that every day. So
Yeah, I was gonna, I think it costs them nothing to have a 90-minute meeting with an EOS implementer, to be
yeah,
honest with you. Do those for free. And so tire kick, right? Talk
yeah,
to an implementer and say, hey, these are the issues that I'm having in my company. How do you think you can help? How would EOS help this?
yeah. And I know Great Game has a very strong community of companies that are running the game, and that they help each other and will help somebody that's looking
Oh,
at it. We'll have a
very
deep discussion with
transparent,
them of,
very,
before and
very,
after. Yeah,
it's a little bit, it's a strong community. And so once you kind of, play the game, you kind of get excited about the idea of
mhm,
others playing the game. So we visited when we were contemplating playing the game, two or three companies invited us into their huddles, which means
mhm,
they were showing us their entire financials. They didn't care. I mean, at the end of the day, they were willing to show us kind of how it worked. I think going back to your question of if I'm talking to a business owner today, I'm not trying to prescribe either EOS
right,
or GGOB.
yeah,
What is your dream? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you accomplishing it? If not, why not? Where's the pain?
yeah,
And if the pain lends itself to either EOS or GGOB solving that,
yeah,
then that's where I take them. And
yeah,
if it doesn't, like they may operationally run the business very well, it just may not be an immediate need for that business. But
yeah.
where are you trying to go and are you getting there? And if not, why not? That's where I start.
Yeah, and it seems like these two particular operating systems have longevity. That companies that start adopting them will keep them for a long period of time. I've got a
Yeah.
friend who's been on EOS almost 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
becomes the culture, Dave. I
yeah,
mean,
they
there are
wouldn't give it
over
up. Yeah.
310,000 companies running on EOS. I mean,
Wow.
it's a proven system that works.
Yep. And I think maybe that's the proof in, to the skeptic or the business owner that says, I'm not sure that this is worth the time and money and energy that it looks like it's going to take to do. I think the results is really what show that.
Yeah. David made a similar point earlier that I'm going to capture here again, which is they got to be willing to change, though. Like if you think what got you to where you are today is going to take you to the future and grow your future company, it's probably not.
Right.
Right? There's that natural evolution and revolution of business that's been written about in several great business books. Right? As our business evolves, what got us to where we are isn't going to take us into the future.
Yeah.
So if you're a business owner who is excited about growing your company, creating a saleable asset, creating enterprise value, leaving a legacy, whatever it happens to be that is your desire for your future and freedom, you have the opportunity to check out something that can help.
Yeah. 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 And even companies that are wildly successful, I won't say despite themselves, but just because they got in the right place at the right time. And
Yeah.
David and I know one that's close to us that they fell into a construction related business that has just gone nuts.
Yeah.
And they're struggling with how do we, you know, how long can we do this? And it's almost the tiger is turning on them. So it's like we're a victim of our success. We got to figure out how to handle this. And I think that a business operating system is certainly a valid way to do that. So it's not always the one that's struggling, saying we're just never getting the results we thought we would. Sometimes we're very good, but we realize this is a moment in time. We've got to figure out how do we make this a permanent thing. Yeah. So very
Less
great.
overdependency.
Well,
Right?
super. This I think is a great. Hopefully, this podcast becomes a reference point when we're talking with clients or anybody at Mastery is talking with a client that's struggling with do I I investigate this and do this? We're blessed that we've got many people within our organization that have a great familiarity with these operating systems, which is very helpful, I think, and certainly a resource we can bring to bear. So I want to thank you both for taking the time to do this. This is incredible.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we look forward to our next Mastery Partners podcast, which should be coming up. I think we're going to be on pretty much a weekly cadence with podcasts now, which is awesome. So I imagine we'll see each other again in podcast land. So,
Dave, appreciate you.
all right, man. Thanks, guys, and I appreciate you much. Have a great week.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. It was great.
All right.
See you, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.